This is KIC Radio.
Hello and welcome back to the South Bank podcast in what is now our 10th episode already reaching some landmarks. Today I'm joined once again by Cameron Gorman. Cam, got a smile on your face and the day you had yesterday, I'm assuming you're quite a happy chap this week.
Oh, I'm absolutely beaming, Jake, after yesterday's result. Brilliant away day. I was very lucky to have gone yesterday for Vitor Pereira's first game in charge. And wow, what an atmosphere we created. I have to be honest, the King Power, if not for the Bulls fans, would have been a library. Lots of empty seats. And you'd think they're gone for Christmas dinner, but it's a few days too early. I'm just looking forward to getting right into this one, Jacob, off the back of a brilliant result.
Yep, and we shall do just that because, just like you, I'm very enthusiastic to talk about this today. But start at the beginning of the game, before we get on to being overly positive. The first 10 minutes from Wolves, it wasn't all plain sailing. Struggled to keep holding the ball quite a fair bit. I remember immediately after 20 seconds, Matt Doherty giving the ball away at the back. And just struggling to keep hold of the ball, really. And the main real Leicester chance of the game came in that first 10 minutes. A ball over the top, finding Jamie Vardy, who was through on goal, but due to some brilliant goalkeeping from Jose Sarr, outside of his area, I might add, kept in the game. What were you thinking those first 10 minutes?
Well, you mentioned that Matt Doherty release pass. As soon as that happened within the first few minutes of the game, you just heard the groans from the away support. And we were all thinking, here we go again, nothing's changed. But luckily that wasn't the case. On that note of Doherty, I think him and Semedo swapping roles, if one of them is going to have to play centre-half in this five-at-the-back system, I think it paid dividends yesterday. With Doherty, with his now lack of pace compared to what we were used to originally, I think it makes a clear difference. And Semedo is so strong going forward that there's just immense ability in his dribbling and his passing, which we saw a lot yesterday. But that Vardy over the top ball, I think we look quite weak to those balls over the top in the first 10 minutes and even across the game in some points. Vardy was working exceptionally hard to try and get on the end of those, but I do feel that was probably due to some of the chants that the away end were subjecting him to, specifically about his misses. However, those aren't for the podcast, and we're here to talk about the football. I think our pressing looked very good in hindsight while we were under the pressure. And I think the defence looked a lot more confident despite nothing really changing since our last game, except a couple training sessions. Jose Sarr looked like a man reborn yesterday, complete confidence in him throughout the match and some brilliant saves to keep us in it, but we'll get to those later.
Yeah, and before I continue with the podcast, for our visual viewers, me and Cam, we didn't decide to match today. It's purely a coincidence. So there's nothing unbeknownst going on here. But we get into... before I actually go on for the rest of the game, I want to mention on the topic of Jamie Vardy, relates to him, I thought referee yesterday, Anthony Taylor, was quite awful, to be honest. I thought that Jordan Ayew was fortunate to not at least get one yellow card in the early stages. And Jamie Vardy, how that man did not end that match with booking.
Oh, wow. I have no idea.
He was constantly hacking down at everyone. And then, almost a bit of karma. I don't ever want to see a player hurt, but getting, a little bit of a due diligence for what he was doing towards the end of the game. But that's not the important aspect of this game. The important aspect, coming into the starting lineup, Gonzalo Guedes, absolutely fantastic performance, which we'll get onto later. But that opening goal, it comes from nothing. It's a ball into the box that he's not expected to do anything with, really. It's a very, very tight angle, but he beats Connor Cody to that ball and squeezes it in past Danny Ward somehow, which Leicester fans will probably argue if they had their first choice keeper in goal, does it beat him? But we don't care. Gonzalo Guedes once again find himself with a goal contribution. I think it's a goal contribution every 55 minutes on average.
Yep.
He's got now this season, which is ridiculous. Cam, the away end erupted, and I'm sure you were there with that for that first goal.
Wow, honestly, pandemonium, Jacob. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. A first half goal, and then I won't even mention the other ones we got yet. However, one man I want to pick out for that first goal is Jurgen Strand Larsen. While he wasn't credited with a goal or an assist, I think creates the chance and effectiveness. While Semedo plays the long ball over the top, you can see Strand Larsen. Vestergaard is going to intercept and head this ball. Strand Larsen just holds him off, hugs him, holds him back, so Guedes can get in the space in behind and beat Cody to that ball. And I do have to agree with the Leicester fans on that one. I think without Danny Ward in goal, I actually don't think we score any of those goals yesterday. I will be quite pessimistic in saying that, but I think against a better team, say in the top half of the table, I don't think we get any of those goals. But like you said, we don't care. And I think that is exactly the sort of luck we deserve after quite a torrid start to the season. And I think it will give the boys so much confidence, let alone. And regardless of the nature of those finishes, being quite fortunate to some degree, I think we would have got them either way. We should have scored a lot more in this game, specifically the second half, which we'll get to later. But I think Jurgen Strand Larsen did very well to hold off Vestergaard and help create that chance. Just one you might not have noticed.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting takeaway from that goal. But if we were jubilant for one goal, imagine how it felt when the second one went in. Rodrigo Gomez, who, we were having a bit of a discussion before the game, Cameron. You weren't as optimistic with the lineup as I was at the time. In fairness, he believed it was a back four when you first led the lineup. But I said if Doc's in that centre back role, which we mentioned, and we mentioned on the podcast last week, he should be in that centre back role. It made the world of difference. But it is quite a good lineup, and the two players I highlighted, Rodrigo Gomez and Gonzalo Guedes, were the two that ultimately were finding the goods in that first half. A very suspect defence by James Justin, it must be said. I think if Matt Doherty or Nelson Semedo does that, we're on this podcast absolutely losing our rag.
Yeah.
But it's a scrappy goal, but they all count the same. Rodrigo Gomez once again making a darting run, which he was doing all afternoon, down that left-hand channel and just scrapping it past the goalkeeper. Jurgen Strand Larsen, despite his best efforts to nick the goal off Rodrigo, couldn't quite get there, and the goal is credited to Rodrigo Gomez. And I was made up for the lad. I've been singing this man's praises for quite a while, despite his lack of game time. And for him to come in that left wing back position, which at Estoril he seemed to play more on the right when he was a wing back, so an unnatural position for him, and played a fantastic game and credited himself with a goal as well.
Well, I think it was brilliant to see Rodrigo Gomez's first goal in Wolves colours, and I'm sure we will all be ecstatic. I do have to agree. I think James Justin should have done a lot better. Perhaps headed to intercept that ball. However, no complaints from us. And I think Danny Ward was quite unlucky, in honesty. I wouldn't put the blame on him like a lot of fans or pundits seem to have. I think he gets a good touch to stop it first time, and he's quite unlucky that it rolls in. I'm going to defend Strand Larsen here again. I'm loving this man at the moment and his work off the ball. He held off running to tap that in. He did not want to steal his first goal, as I'm sure Rodrigo would have been absolutely seething had he done it. But yeah, sheer pandemonium in the away end. We could not believe what we were seeing. I was seeing people falling multiple rows, people screaming, people saying we're winning the league. We just could not believe what we were seeing. A complete revelation for Wolves. I really am just shocked still, to be honest. I did not think we had 3 first half goals in us as a team. And I think this system has brought a lot of players' confidence back. And it knows how to let them have the freedom O'Neill tried to let them have without having it, if that makes sense. They're still conformed to the regime. They're still fighting in the system that needs to be fought.
Yeah, so we've seen a few witty tweets, particularly with the Europa League music and whatnot. Renew your passports, everything. I think Sami Ahmed might have been the few behind a few of those tweets, actually. But we carry on in the first half, and for me, the pick of the bunch, the third goal, Gonzalo Guedes, who was absolutely tearing Leicester a new one. You could tell by the amount of fouls that were going against Guedes that they were just struggling to live with him. Some really crafty footwork on that side. And again, for the goal, working to get past his man and then cut it back to Cunha, who Cunha still has a lot to do in that position. It's again a tight angle that Cunha does very well to score from. And for me, it's a fantastic goal and sums up, like, if there are some rumours to be believed that we're looking to get rid of Gonzalo Guedes in January, you've got to keep this man at this football club. Because for me, he's fantastic. For me, he is a player that in a relegation scrap like we're in, you need at your football club because he's coming up with goals, he's coming up with assists. But this goal in particular, third goal, I mean, it's beautiful football from Wolves and something we've been missing for a while. I don't know if you agree, Cameron.
No, I completely agree. I think regardless of if we were in a relegation scrap or not, Gonzalo Guedes is simply one of the best attackers at the club. We all knew how good this man was when we brought him in from Valencia, and we were all very disappointed in the subsequent season when he left in January and clearly wasn't happy. But he seems to have a smile back on his face. He seems to be happy playing football. And I do think playing for a Portuguese manager in Vitor Pereira will actually have helped a lot with that. I think he will be a lot more excited to play in under a manager who knows how to get the best out of him and his compatriots. But Gonzalo Guedes, what excellent football. He was causing that Leicester defence so many problems all afternoon, turning them inside out. Cunha, like you said, he has a lot to do. I think he does excellent to have that finish go in off the post. I think otherwise Danny Wall would have had a lot better chance of saving that shot. But just all round an excellent goal, really. And against the odds, we had a few from that tight angle on the right-hand side go in. And it does beg the question to me, maybe that was something they've looked at in the training ground, a weakness for them to exploit against Leicester, because there were quite a few chances coming in that sort of right hand of the 6-yard box, like a João Gomez attempt in the second half also. I just wonder if that was pointed out by Vitor, and I think it was just a really well-worked goal.
Yeah, so obviously Vitor Pereira, he couldn't ask for a better first half from his team on his first match in the dugout. For me, we just looked so much more threatening with that front three. I know goals haven't been our problem, but the wingers were Guedes and Cunha were coming back to support the defence as well, which made us look more assured in that defensive aspect as well. Leicester, aside from that Vardy chance, not really having a sniff in that first half. And it continued on to the second half. For me, was it a fantastic second half? And was no, I think there are things I picked up on in this second half that will potentially come into play against Man United, against Tottenham, but we will touch on later because I know you agreed with me after the fact. But at the same time, I don't remember the time we've managed the second half that well in a good while. When we were on the ball, we weren't wasteful with it, which is such a refreshing thing to say because usually we're like rabbits in the headlights. But as you mentioned earlier, chances in that second half, particularly João Gomez header comes to mind. That as much as I love that man, I'm going to have to say he should have been doing better with that chance. That should have been 4-0. Do you agree?
Completely. João Gomez could have had a brace that second half quite easily. That header was a massive chance gone begging. Cunha just sat on the ground after his cross went in and he didn't see it hit the net. And he was just smiling because we were 3-0 up, which is good to say. Good to know that the pressure's kind of off them at that point. But I think it was great game management by the defence in the second half. Jose Sá spectacular again. However, I do think there are some warning signs which we'll get onto later, which I think the better teams, aka United and Tottenham, who we go against next, they will be able to exploit that, and their coaches, the top level coaches, and we'll see this. Just to take you back to that first half for a second, I think that Vardy chance you mentioned, I think he's extremely unlucky not to score, showing his experience with some nice footwork after Totti missed the cross, just to drop Santi effectively from blocking the shot. And Totti, great recovery on the line to get rid of it. I was very happy to see him show that desire to get back and correct his mistake. I do think the clean sheet in general is just huge for us. I think we really needed that, not only for our goal difference, but for the confidence of that defence to make them feel like they are able to do their job. And I really think they can. I think Santi especially had a really good game. I
Yes.
think with Doherty playing centre half, Doherty was having to fill in for him at the channel sometimes. Santi was having to track the runs of both Toti's man and Doherty's man at times to fill in for them where they'd be drawn out to the fullback positions in this system, I noticed. And I do feel like that combined with how the midfield could be easily cut apart could be a massive problem when it comes to playing United specifically. As I'm sure we'll get onto in our fan feature later, I've highlighted Bruno Fernandes as being a player who will know how to exploit that. And I do think a team better than Leicester will be able to just see that for themselves. However, Vitor had very limited time to prepare his team for this match, and the players won't be completely comfortable with the position, so we can't really ask for a better result. I wasn't sure whether to say we'd even win going into this match due to that. And once Vitor has a few more days, now he will have the full backing of the squad, I'm sure, after a phenomenal result for him and a very brilliant reception from the fans. We were chanting his name the whole 90 minutes, pleased with the football. And he even came over at the end, as we posted on our social media, to do the cheers with the fans. And while he was doing instead of a little fist pump,
He'll get
for our
there.
visual, yeah, he'll get there eventually. But he was very happy to be there and he was very thankful of the fans. Rodrigo Gomez, our previous listeners will know we've sung this man's praises. We've all three of us, me, you, and Sami, have said in previous weeks we're not sure why he's not getting in the team after his phenomenal performance against Fulham. Rodrigo Gomez himself, he said in his post-match questions that he's very happy Vitor Pereira has put him back into the role he played best in Portugal. And you can see that the players are happy to be where they are. Like you touched upon with the wingers tracking back, I thought Guedes, Cunha, Strand Larson at times too coming into midfield, even, they all did excellent defensively. While Rodrigo Gomez was having his rapid bombing runs forward, which we've also seen from Ait Nouri when he's playing in that position, Cunha was happy to fill in at almost a left wing back position, which then allowed him to drive from deep. And I think it just all amalgamates together to play off our players' strengths.
Yeah, certainly. And you touched upon what I did deem as the main weakness. I obviously don't want to be negative when we've just won 3-0, but for me, with the least offence to Leicester, they are a poor side, but they still managed to find gaps in that midfield. And to me, that's something that we touched upon when speaking about Vitor Pereira last week on the podcast, that there is usually those gaps in midfield that allows teams to have those shots off around the edge of the box, as you stated on the podcast. And immediately I could see that. Like you say, someone like a Bruno Fernandes, like a Kulusevski for Spurs in our games coming up, I think that could become a problem for Wolves. But yeah, as for Vitor Pereira, I mean, he can ask for a better start to life at Wolves. Nice to see smiles on not just our squad's face, but the manager's face again, as he came over to the away fans at the end. But to me, he's been in one game, and already it just proves what was Gary O'Neill seeing in this football team. Doherty, it was a simple solution to put him at right centre back. I'm not a football manager, you're not a football manager, but we both said that. And it happened once and it worked. We've both been saying, Gonzalo Guedes, why isn't this man starting? We spoke about the front three of Guedes, Cunha and Larson after the Crystal Palace game, said this is the way forward. We haven't seen it since until yesterday, and we saw it, and it worked once again. If we're seeing these kind of things, if Vitor Pereira is seeing these kind of things after 2 training sessions, what on earth was Gary O'Neill seeing? It baffles me now.
Maybe he was a man who didn't want his job. He seemed to be throwing a lot of shots around in his press conferences, and I do think that was almost a resignation speech of sorts that was coming over the few weeks for Gary O'Neill. However, yeah, like you said, simple fixes, but simple fixes are sometimes the solution. Gonzalo Guedes, his goal assist rate per minutes ratio this season is phenomenal. For limited minutes, he's been one of our best attackers. And we've all said in previous weeks on the podcast, as our listeners will know, that Guedes, Strand Larson, and Cunha is our best front three by a mile. The chemistry they have with each other is all undeniable, with limited minutes actually playing together, other than Strand and Cunha. And I do think once Guedes continues to gel with them, it will only get better. He is now showing why we paid that fee for him back in the summer of, was it 2020? I think so.
Was it 2022?
2021?
Or
Oh,
2021,
maybe.
2022?
Losing track of the years when he's had this many loans. But we're really starting to see why we paid that fee. And I'm just really impressed by the quality he's showing. I think we've questioned his passion at times in certain weeks. We've questioned his energy he's willing to put in. I think under some previous managers, we've seen him unwilling to track, unwilling to work. He really wants that now, and he shows a lot of desire. And he's even now starting to post the club on his social media again. So maybe, just maybe, we're making that man fall in love with the old gold.
Yeah, and for me, if he's a player you can keep at the club, he's a great asset to have here, particularly if you're going to lose someone like a Cunha in the summer, which seems very possible. You need, the second best, goal scorer, goal contributor on the team is Gonzalo Guedes. That's simply a fact. We need players like him around the football club. But obviously, we all love festive football, but not when you're playing Man United and Tottenham within 3 days of each other. Oh, I will say, both teams do look beatable at the moment, but still two very talented squads. Before we properly dive into these two games, we are going to get a Man United fan's perspective from Finn Kelly, and we'll go to that now. All right. So it's our pleasure to be joined by Finn Kelly, representing Man United. Finn, how are you doing?
Good, thank you, Jacob.
Yeah, very good. So get straight into it. Obviously, Ruben Amorim recently took over Man United. Been a mixed bag of results under a new system. Obviously, a disappointing loss for you yesterday to Bournemouth. After seeing these first few games, where do you think the game will be won or be lost for Man United against Wolves?
Well, personally, I feel like you said, it's a real mixed bag of feelings at the moment due to like the amazing win against City, who have obviously been awful. So loving the City downfall, but at the moment it is more swinging that I feel like we could lose this game due to just how we are quite like sort of structured and have possession, but we do leak big chances. And in the Premier League against Tottenham and who did we just play? Bournemouth. You do suffer from them. So look at the big like goals. 7 in the last 2 games. It's just like not possible to stay where we want to be in the Premier League. So bottom half of the table for Christmas is the worst United's ever seen since 1989. So I think you will win by having your big chances, like through Cunha, who takes those chances all day. And I don't see much threat that we can provide going forward at the last few games. Our goals have came from errors, which were just easy. Like if you miss those, then you be in the Championship or even League One. So I feel like it could be quite an even game for both teams.
Yeah, so I also wanted to ask on a bit of an off-field matter that's dominating the headlines in regards to Man United at the moment. Marcus Rashford, obviously looking like his time at Old Trafford is coming to an end, being left out the squad recently. I assume your thoughts aren't very positive on that, but just wanted to clarify what you're thinking about Marcus Rashford leaving the club.
Well, yeah, so we basically have such a well, me personally, and I know a lot of fans do, all my friends do, have such a love for Marcus Rashford. He's a Manc born and bred. We have songs for him. We just love to see him do well, but he's made it so hard for us to support him the last few seasons now. And I do agree with Amarin leaving him out because he's just I feel like I can sort of imagine what he's like in the dressing room and on the training pitch, not that bothered and whatnot. And he's just been the same problem for so many years now. And he's been in that squad for so many years now that surely those types of players are the problem. So it's better to get rid and just sort of like suck up the pain of a homegrown talent going. But there's obviously positives that he might go for him personally, he might do well, and for us, we'll get quite a lot of money as he's pure profit basically for us.
Yeah, that's a very interesting view on the matter. I'll pass over to Cam now, who I'm sure has a few questions of his own.
Yeah, thankfully, due to your recent downscaling form, I'm not sure if this is the new manager bounce ending for Ruben Amorim. I am a fan of the man, however, and I really think he's going to be the one to take United forward. There are some interesting things I find about his approach with his like no prisoners taken. It's you adapt or you leave realistically to his system. And I think in the long term that will prove better for United. However, Bruno Fernandes is the key threat, I think, for Wolves, as while we're over the moon about the Leicester result, me and Jacob both noticed that our midfield seems to be quite easy to carve open and sustain a lot of pressure. And I think Bruno is someone who I've seen many times this season alone and in the previous seasons. He has a brilliant eye for a pass, knows how to exploit space. He's happy to move around. And I think Amorim's system suits him down to the ground in this regard. Do you think that's where the game could be won and lost for us?
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like the game will be won or lost in the midfield. We've showed that against Spurs. We conceded, I think it was 3 goals in like 55 minutes, where we had Ericsson on the pitch and we didn't have Mainu and didn't have Ugarte on the pitch, I'm pretty sure. So if we have a team like Ericsson, I reckon you'll be fine, because it's just pure the legs of Ericsson is totally gone. Same with Casemiro. There's no chance. I feel like you'll be safe there. But if we have Mainu, Ugarte and Bruno, I feel like we can exploit those errors that you've made against Leicester, even though you won.
Yeah, Mainu is definitely one Wolves fans will be fearing after last year.
Yeah.
There's some bad memories there. However, I do think for United that you easily have more potential in your squad, and I can't help but feel like you could easily do us over. I think it'd be typical Wolves to have won 3-0 and you lose 3-0 and then you go in and batter us. But I am the pessimist usually. What is your score prediction for this week then?
So I'm caught in 2 minds. I reckon we could lose 2-1, because I reckon Molineux will be up for this game on Boxing Day. I reckon that the atmosphere will be rocking, and it was a great game last year. So I reckon high scoring, because both teams' defence are quite bad at the moment. So I reckon 3-3 or 4-3 United.
Ooh.
Same as
Love
last
to
year.
see that.
Let's hope it.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
brilliant to have you on, Finn. Best of luck for the rest of the season, just not on Boxing Day. And
Yeah.
hope
Same with
you and your family have a very Merry Christmas from everyone at South Bank.
You too. All right,
Yep.
bye, boys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Finn.
Brilliant. Thank you, Finn. So thank you to Finn. Brilliant insight on Man United there. Interesting. He predicts another 3-3 or 4-3, just like we saw at the Molineux last year. A game that obviously broke a lot of Wolves fans' hearts. But I mean, he does raise a good point. You know, two very talented attacks and two very fragile defences, it seems. Cam, do you see it being a high-scoring game on Boxing Day?
Yeah, definitely. I think while we kept a clean sheet, we are yet to see how that affects our team's confidence. We could easily go out and show the same disorganisation. At home, I feel like sometimes our fans can be quite, I'm not sure how to put it, but we can be on their backs quite a lot of the time. And I think against a team like United, the fans, like Finn said, will be extremely up to it given the recent result. And United's result will only boost our confidence. And I think that will also go for the players themselves ahead of this game. I'm interested to get your score predictions in a minute. However, I do think the game will be won and lost, like Finn said, in the midfield. I think Jose Sa looks a lot more confident. He's no longer my concern, really. I think he put in a lot of excellent saves against Leicester, and he was arguably my man of the match over Guedes. because I think without him, the defence could easily start looking a lot more rocky had they conceded just one. But their confidence will hopefully be built by that. Guedes will definitely be starting against United. I'll be shocked if he doesn't. Jacob, what are your score predictions for this Manchester United game?
Well, before I get into a score prediction, I'd like to ask you a question. Obviously, we saw Ryan Aït-Nouri was suspended for the Leicester game. Rodrigo Gomez coming into his role and playing really well in that position. Is it straight back in for Ryan Aït-Nouri, or has Rodrigo Gomez earned his spot for that United game?
I think he has. I think that's probably why Vitor Pereira took him off quite early on, regardless. We saw Doherty move over to right back and Semedo move over to left back for the last few minutes of the game. And I do feel like that was to give Rodrigo Gomez a rest because he didn't stop running all game. I think having a player who's just scored from that position, who's in amazing confidence and self-belief in himself for this new system also, I think he's earned his spot. I think Aït-Nouri with some ill discipline isn't something you can reward, and I don't think Vitor Pereira is the man to do that, as we saw with Mario Lemina not being included in the matchday squad at all. I'm not sure if they said there was an injury or something regarding that, but
it was said there was an injury on Talking Wolves and other platforms, but I didn't hear anything.
I'm
from
not
Pereira's mouth.
convinced. Yeah, I'm also not convinced by that. While it's easy to assume that's an injury, I think it might be him saying, I'm not going to stand for that. And I could easily see him doing the same for Aït-Nouri. I don't think he comes straight back into the side, if I'm honest. And I would much rather see Rodrigo Gomez start. Although you can, on one hand, say against attackers the pedigree of United compared to Leicester, would Rodrigo Gomez get a lot more exposed, sustain a lot more pressure he's unsure of how to handle on that level of player? But I do think we have a chance. I think we have more than a chance given United's recent result. I'm just going to hope we can pull off a Boxing Day miracle.
Yeah, so I personally don't feel like we need a miracle. I think it's in the realms of possibility for us to beat Manchester United. But on the Aït-Nouri and Gomez situation, I think it's a really good headache to have because in one regard, you have a player who's just came in, played absolutely brilliantly against Leicester, got a goal for you. But you've got to remember what a talent Ryan Aït-Nouri is. Whilst it was ill-disciplined at the end of that Ipswich game, we know obviously a bit more defensively assured, with which will come very good with players like Amad Diallo, Garnacho potentially running at that side. But for me, I would keep Rodrigo Gomez in there. That might be a risk, as you say, but at home, I think it'll be a good Molineux atmosphere, and we should go for Manchester United. We should go for that jugular. And I think Rodrigo Gomez running at that fragile Man United defence can cause real problems. But on the other hand, Ryan Aït-Nouri, we know he likes a Boxing Day goal, as we saw Everton, Lopetegui's first Premier League game. But as for a score prediction, for the first time in what seems a while, I'm going to be optimistic and go for a Christmas cracker of a 3-2 Wolverhampton Wanderers win. I think Cunha gets himself on the score sheet as well as Guedes. And you know what? I'm going to say even more of a Christmas present. I think we see an 85th minute Tommy Doyle winner from outside the box. That could get clipped. That could be everywhere come the 27th of December. Cam, what are your thoughts?
I wish upon a Christmas miracle. I wish upon a star that happens. However, I feel like I have to go the opposite way if you're going to go for a hopeful one, because I think United do always have the potential to turn us over. I'm going to say just 2-1 United. Do not get me wrong. I'm also optimistic. I'm also really confident that we could do something here, and we have the chance to really build on that Leicester result and hammer home the misery on Ruben Amorim's side. But I'm going to say 2-1 United just because we all know the quality in that team. They beat Manchester City, and while everyone seems to be doing it at the minute, we still couldn't. But let's not talk about that game. I'm going to say 2-1 United, 2-2 at best, but I'm really, really excited to be proven wrong, hopefully.
Yeah, let's hope. And I don't like to preview games before we've played another game, but we do play Tottenham Hotspur before our next podcast. Obviously, like I say, don't like to preview because we could lose heavily on Boxing Day and they could win heavily on Boxing Day. And then our perspectives are outdated now. But Spurs is a game that I said to you last night could end about 12-10 or something ridiculous, because a bit similar to what we said about United, but to a new extreme, 6-3 the Spurs game ended up yesterday. And they were 5-1 down in that game. They still didn't look out the game. It's a rather ridiculous brand of football they play. But for me, that Spurs game, it's one that I don't see us winning, simply because while their defence is poor and our attack is good, their attack is better. Players like Kulusevski, who is unreal, obviously Solanke, Son.
Fred Johnson.
I don't see a win, but if we win on Boxing Day, I'm sure I'll think that we're the best team in the world and we're going to go and beat Real Madrid 6-1 next season, and my passport's getting renewed. But Cam, Spurs, thoughts? Not that it's really relevant to this point.
Well, unlike our other two usual hosts, I don't think we're going to get Europe all of a sudden. I'm not sure though. I do see us getting 1 or maybe 3 points from at least one of these next 2 games. I don't think we're going to leave with nothing from either of them. I think we're really showing a bit of promise now, and I think either one of these games is going to have a lot of goals in them, and it's going to have some points there for Wolves. I think Spurs is arguably more winnable than United with their high line, but at the same time, Spurs do have the potential to just outscore us whilst they concede all these goals. I'm going to have to say 4-3 Spurs or 3-1 Wolves.
Either way, sounds like a very entertaining game. Disclaimer, these Europe jokes are in jest. We are not getting European football this season. Just for anyone that may be taking this seriously. Although Cam is to his Europa League badge as we reminisce about very good times as Wolves fans. But
yeah, we can just hope.
Well, yeah, that is all for this week. I'd like to wish Cam and Gorman a very Merry Christmas, as well as any viewers, any listeners, a very Merry Christmas too from everyone here at the South Bank Podcast. I've been your host, Jacob Jones. I've been accompanied by Cam and Gorman. And see you on the next one.
Goodbye from me. Merry Christmas and a goodbye from me. See you all next week.
On the KIC Radio app and online at kicradio.co.uk. This is KIC Radio.